You might assume that once someone reaches 25 million, the worries disappear, but they don't. In fact, the ultra wealthy often carry a surprisingly heavy list of concerns, from taxes and inflation to health, cybersecurity, family legacy, and even political instability. Today, we're unpacking what actually keeps the ultra wealthy up at night. And more importantly, whether you should be thinking about the same things. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.
Welcome into Legacy Beyond Wealth. Great to have you on the show once again. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. We're talking about the ultra wealthy again. We did a show recently on the structure that the ultra wealthy uses to kind of help achieve that level of success. Today, we're talking about the concerns because, look, as much money as you have, one thing that doesn't change is that uncertainty that comes along with it. You might have more options, but it doesn't eliminate those concerns as well. Rob, I kind of think about being a parent, very similar to this, right? No matter how much you grow and how old your children get, there's always going to be some concerns. They might shift a little bit, right? You might have a few more options, but there's always going to be a level of worry there.
Absolutely. And, I always think that people just always tell me, if I can get to this income level or this net worth, boy, life would just be fine. And I remember falling into that same trap when I first started my career, right? Just thinking, man, if I can just make this much money, I won't have anything more to worry about. But the truth is as you advance on your wealth path, there's going to be concerns that are always going to be there. They may change from time to time on what those concerns are, but most important is that we don't ignore those concerns, but we have a plan in place to be able to address them.
Absolutely. So today we're going to take you through that a little bit, talk about those 5 major areas of concern, but also we want to talk about some practical ways to address each one. If it's maybe something you haven't thought about, maybe it's something that you want to pay a little bit closer attention to after hearing this, we're going to try to help you with that along the way. So let's jump into some of these financial concerns, Rob, and that's really the first one on our list, right? Is the financial concerns that come with everyday life.
Yeah, and what is a financial concern? And it could be inflation, rising federal and state taxes, the national debt, market volatility definitely adds some financial concerns in there, which include the possibility of a market correction that would be out there. Interestingly enough, the younger wealthy investors are particularly concerned about rising taxes. And, the very wealthiest, those over 125 million, are more focused on volatility and inflation risk. So what's the takeaway from understanding that these are the concerns from this survey that was done? It means even the most significant wealth doesn't absolve the anxiety around market volatility. And so the takeaway is that we need to make sure that we have ongoing portfolio reviews. I mean, with us and our clients, we're looking at every 90 days, having that touch point. And even when the market gets volatile or starts to go down, we increase the communication during that time of volatility to make sure we're having those discussions. And also important is having a plan for when that volatility happens. The last 3 years have been really good in the market, and there's been some volatility along the way, but all of our reviews have always been, hey, sunshine doesn't last forever. There is a rainstorm that will be coming. If anything that history has taught us, that's the truth. And so just like how my wife carries an umbrella in her car, even on sunshiny days, it's important that we talk with clients about what are our plans to implement if that market volatility happens, and what are we doing right now to make sure that everything's going to be okay, and that we've done our best to try to plan for those worst case scenarios, which include, diversified investment strategies and having those trusted conversations on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to eliminate risk, right? But you want to make sure you're able to manage it, make sure you're prepared for whatever that different risk might be, that you have your umbrella ready when it's needed. The next category here, Rob, political concerns, right? National concerns. I mean, this is not a new thing. Maybe it's a little bit more elevated at this point, but this is a concern that a lot of people have.
Yeah, when you look at it, immigration is a big one right now, crime, the national debt, climate change. I mean, depending on where you fall, maybe the political spectrum, those Political risks may vary, but one thing is certain: everyone can agree that they feel some degree of political risk that is out there. And election years only tend to heighten that risk a little bit more. I'll never forget a client that called me the night of the election when Biden got elected. And it was clear that he was going to be the next president. And he called me and was so convinced the market was going down and asked me to make sure that he gets out of the market. We talked about our plan in place and how we didn't feel like that was the best thing for him. And his wife said, no, keep me invested. But he was adamant to pull out. And boy, the next 3 years of reviews with that client were really interesting because his wife's account substantially outperformed his own. And this last election cycle, when Trump was elected, I kind of joked with him a little bit. He goes, nope, lesson learned. I'm staying invested during that time period. So, we want to make sure that we're managing portfolio flexibility, avoiding emotional driven decisions, and make sure we're focusing on the long term strategies. Truth be told, when we look at who's elected, it's more about having the right plan in place with that flexibility than maybe someone's political agenda that or bullet point list that they have out there with what they're going to do if they get elected.
Yeah, the political environment is going to always kind of have an impact on people, and it's going to be a top social concern, especially among those wealthy investors. The third one here, Rob, is these global and cybersecurity concerns. I mean, these again seem to kind of escalate more and more in this new digital age that we're in. But this is something that's really on the radar of a lot of ultra wealthy investors too, right?
It is. Last year I went to a training from a company called Black Cloak, and they specialize in the ultra wealthy and helping them build a security wall to monitor cybersecurity attacks and things of that nature. And Ben, I almost felt like I wanted to throw away every device in my house after she got done giving that presentation because it was something that could be scary out there. I mean, these cyber attacks, global political tensions and terrorism are on the radar of nearly 3/4 of the ultra wealthy that are out there. And so, some of those practical steps that we need to talk about is to implement advanced cybersecurity protections. What are we doing? Part of the reason to go to those trainings is so I can talk through those concerns with clients and better understand what risks they have and try to help them connect to make sure that they're looking at those situations and ensure that your financial institutions are doing the same. I mean, we talk with clients all the time about wire risk that's out there. I mean, every time you see a wire out there, they're always talking about making sure certain things are done because wire fraud has become so prevalent in our society. Now you're seeing these scams in Bitcoin and other areas that are out there. So just making sure that those entities that you're doing business with take cybersecurity as important as you do, and then stay informed about what's going on out in the world and question your professionals about what they're doing to make sure they're taking steps that your information is protected and more importantly your assets are protected.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, I just need to get off the grid completely, Rob, but it's nearly impossible to do, especially in this line of work. But yeah, definitely get you thinking a little bit. Last one, another one here is your family and legacy concerns. Again, this is something that's close to you. Obviously, with the name of the show, Legacy Beyond Wealth is something you work with your clients a lot on. But when you dig into this a little bit, a little more detail, Rob, what are we talking about here? These major family and legacy concerns. What are those?
Yeah, one of those big ones was education funding is becoming a big concern for people. Also, first time home buyers. I hear a lot of people go, man, I got into my home at a 3 or 4% mortgage. Maybe some are even down in the 2% range. And they go, I don't think my kids are ever going to see that. And the home prices have appreciated so much. So, making sure that we can be able to look at how to address those. I think there's a major desire among the wealthy out there to pass down values and to leave a meaningful legacy and really protect assets in a divorce scenario. One situation that we just got done helping a client with is buying a home for their children, and they wanted to be the bank for those that married couple. But one of the concerns was because they're buying the home and kind of having the children living in it and wanting to gift that to them was the divorce concerns. We see that being more and more prevalent in our society. And how do we make sure that family doesn't feel like they're giving away 50% of the value to an ex-in-law. And so, having that put in place and a strategy really meant a lot to that family of talking through it and looking at it. On the education front, you're looking at, starting 529 plans. I just had another wealthy client that we met with that came in and said, "Hey, we've done a lot of great planning. It's a blended family, but now how do we start planning for our kids' future? How do we start saving for them?" And talking through with about the 529 plans and the rule changes last year that really make that an attractive investment and how that lines up with their values was really important.
Are you ready to unlock the freedom to live your best life? Schedule your no-cost 60-minute discovery meeting with our team today. During this session, we'll take the time to understand your family's story and financial dreams. Together, we'll craft a personalized roadmap designed to help you achieve your goals. Let's explore how we can unlock the freedom for you and your family to thrive. Just click the link in the description of today's show to get started.
All right, then our last category here, Rob, is health, of course. And this is, again, something that's very important to the ultra wealthy. It should be important to all of us, right? But not just talk about our own health, but those of our family as well.
Oh man, I can't tell you. Sitting down at my son's basketball game and my dad comes in. And if anyone knows my family situation, my uncle tragically passed away at a young age from having a heart attack under the ocean in Hawaii while he was scuba diving with his family. And that really was part of the reason of what motivates me and drives so much to provide value and protect family assets and values. But my dad had a heart attack in his early 60s. And so, first thing he asked me, "When's the last time you got your cholesterol checked, Rob?" And just started really drilling me quite a bit because he's like, "You need to make sure you're looking at that way ahead of time and not waiting till an event takes place." And I would say for nearly 2/3 of ultra wealthy investors, they're worried about their family's health, their own, their spouse, and their kids as well. For Gen X, it's about their aging parents that are out there. One of my clients happens to be a doctor who's also a longevity expert. And I love picking his brain and seeing, how are we trying to get longevity? And it's not just about living to a ripe old age. My grandma is 101. But it's also about the quality of life at that point. And how do you still have the financial freedom to be able to live your best life at that stage in life as well? So we want to make sure that we have those conversations with clients, that they're proactively taking steps to protect their health, because that's one of those things that you have to do and be consistent about, is living a healthy lifestyle to be able to minimize the risks that are out there.
Yeah, when you hear this list, you probably go, "Well, these are pretty normal concerns," but they are, right? But you have to make sure that you have a strategy built around these realities, right? Of what we deal with every day now and the growing concerns we have as well. And again, that's what planning does, Rob. So anyone that does take you up on that discovery call, I'm sure this is kind of stuff that you kind of scratch the surface on, right? But there's just so much you get into with those that you're working with.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, you want to see something hit you hard at home is when your son, after the basketball game, starts quizzing you just like your dad did and saying, "Dad, I want you to be around, to be a part of my life and my kid's life. And so what are you doing?" And boy, that really hit home pretty hard. And so, I feel like I've done a lot. I started doing more evaluations on what I need to do. And that's the one thing that I think is really key. In my basement, in the special room of my home office, I've got a picture of clients on my wall. And that's I call the wall of inspiration, coming down and looking at that and saying, how do I provide more value to these families? And these conversations are so meaningful to me and my family, like my health. We also want to now create those strategies that go even deeper and dive more into helping clients with those situations as well. So it's not about just living a great life for Rob, but we want to make sure that's there for every client that we work with.
Absolutely. You'll find all that contact information in the show description, but log on, axiowm.com, schedule that time for that discovery call and begin talking through some of these things. But hopefully this kind of identifies, you can't eliminate all the risk out there, right? But you can be more prepared for it through proper planning. And that's what we hope that you take away from this episode. But thank you for watching Legacy Beyond Wealth. Please subscribe if you haven't done that already. Leave a comment if you want as well. We'll check those out. But more importantly, hope you'll join us for another episode coming up. Rob, as always, hope you have a great week.
Thanks so much.